Frank Saunders, I knew I would like you when I saw the bacon in your LinkedIn name. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Yeah, it's going good. Some people call me Mr. Bacon. I'm actually based in Europe. A lot of people don't actually get what bacon means or anything. So I'm on this journey to educate every person in sales in Europe to know what means actually bringing home the bacon. So
Oh, very nice. All right, I like it. So, well, tell me if this has happened for you, because I learned this and it was a beneficial tip. I used to have a red phone
yeah,
in my name, and I get these LinkedIn messages and email messages with squigglies. Hi, Wes, squiggly, blah blah blah, question mark, because they're scraping and they're not cleaning up their data.
exactly.
But you have V. Frank, so you're like me. I go by my middle name. I'm Joseph Wesley, but I don't do the J. I'm not as formal as you Brits, so I just leave the J off. Okay, but you have the V. Did you get a lot of emails? Hi, V. Frank.
Yes, because they typically everybody typically strips out the emoji, right? So sure you can put it, but a lot of the software out there is trained on that. But if you gotta put a letter, literally a letter, then literally people email you, hey V, and then you just know it's automated, right? So that's why
Yes.
I just want to know if it's automated or not, and then I can then decide on my end, like if this seller is like solving my pain, I'll still respond even if it's automated. But I'm in the business of automation myself, right? I do this stuff all day long. I just want to know if it is or not, and I think I'm the only odd individual out there that does that. Nobody else does that. Everybody does emojis just to figure this out, right? But I don't see other people doing it.
So you have the V just on LinkedIn for that purpose?
Yeah, and yeah, I was just hardcore in that. Just trying to figure out, who's automating.
So what I
It
did, so
works. It's always B. It's very rarely it's ever, hey Frank.
oh, gotcha. Yeah, I may switch to that, but I just put a dash at the end of my name now, so it's just
Or
West
that.
Dash,
Yes, or that,
and
yes.
they leave it because some people have hyphenated names. Like my fifth child, she's my I got to think through third daughter. She's a Mary Dash Claire. So no middle name, right? It's just Mary Claire. But so dashes are normal. So maybe I figured out how to trick the bots. So give us some insight, man. What is SalesForge? What is man? Look, don't take this the wrong way, all right? But it's like, okay, here's another AI guy, another AI sales guy. Did your people do a Jedi mind trick and hypnotize me? Was it NLP? How the hell did you get on my show?
It was not my AI, actually, the way that I got on your show. So, yeah, I'm one of those AI guys. But actually, I'm not just an AI guy. I do believe in humans. And if anybody ever goes on Salesforce.ai, you can definitely see the message, we are trying to blend. So there's definitely the hardcore people that will say, AI all the way, definitely not humans, whatever. But I've just literally run a poll on LinkedIn, hey, are you sort of team human? Are you team just AI? Or are you a big believer in essentially humans plus AI stuff, essentially? And that is the category that has the most votes, really. This is over like 100 responses or something. So I guess, what is a lot trending, especially on LinkedIn, is like, you're either on one or the other bank, essentially, right? So you either, say, damn, I'm never gonna use these AIs, DRs, and all that stuff, and then the other folks gonna say, that's where the whole world is headed, right? For different reasons, right? But the main dilemma, just let's say in software space, is that salaries or OTs are massively rising for sales rep. Acquiring net new dollars is just way too expensive. So what do you do in that case? You need to figure out how you stay lean and mean, and that literally means, you need to have low headcount, and then figure out how do you automate a lot of parts of the business, and including sales, right? So, and then on top of that, whether you call that AI or agents, whatever you want to call that, ultimately it has to work. Ultimately, you have to figure out how to deliver the output. And there's a lot of smart cookies out there in the world that build a bunch of different flows and softwares like N8N or Make.com, etc. And sure, but like 95% of the people don't know how to, you build these beautiful kind of agentic flows and stuff like that. And they just need an off-the-shelf solution. So, I've been in sales for over a decade, and I'm literally trying to figure out how do I replace myself when it comes to pipeline building. So a couple of years ago, I built Salesforce essentially with a couple of co-founders that I met through YC, and we didn't go to the accelerator. It's just on the matchmaking platform. It's like what I call the Tinder for co-founders. So I found a couple, a couple cool nerds, and we built this software. Was that?
What's a cool nerd? I've never heard those two words put together. Are you feeling okay? You trying to trick me?
Nah. They're cool. But I know it's
okay. I mean, if you're a fellow nerd, it's like, okay, on a nerd scale, y'all are cool, but like on a human scale, or like, y'all are like way down, like borderline, like almost potentially could maybe be cool.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm a normal sales guy. I don't know how to code, nothing, right? And you need to find people that are into that stuff, right? So, and I literally knew nobody in my network, because it's not like I go and grab beers with engineers or something, on a daily basis. So yeah, that was a cool platform. There's a bunch of other ways you can find engineers naturally, but yeah, I mean, it kind of went really well. And then, at the end of it, last year we launched these AI agents that essentially allows you to do things more autonomously. This is essentially for people that are either lazy, B, incompetent, essentially. Like you don't know how to build the, pipeline. And you're like, I literally had a call prior to you with a couple dudes, and they're building their startup, and they have no clue how to build pipeline. Literally no clue. So option A, you learn all of that, and you're going to spend days and weeks trying to figure out how, like things like email deliverability, how to send emails, why, templating is like really bad for you, whatever. It's going to take a while, but off you go, do it, and then just, run on some software, some emails, whatever, right? And good luck in that front. Or you can just get a software that's sort of purpose built just to build, like you can go down that way, right? So, and there is a market for that, right? People buy that stuff. And we're not the only ones doing it. There's a bunch of like multi-million-dollar companies that they're selling their agents. And I mean, that's what the world is headed generally. And I'm a big believer that you will never replace humans. One reason is, for example, is that if you got a sales guy or girl, you actually, when you do cold calling, you can't do the cold calling with an AI agent. It's illegal in the US, for example. And also other parts of the world. So there are some restrictions with all these, automation stuff like that. Also, an AI agent can't just go on LinkedIn and do social selling. They can't jump on the podcast, so with people like yourself, right? So, but they are good just on, I guess, two things, two channels. One is on the email front, and then you can use the AI agents also on LinkedIn a bit. But that, LinkedIn is also very saturated, right? You probably get a bunch of emails, right? But
well, so funny story, right? You can set your profile as to and how to accept connections.
Yeah.
Right. And I had mine open forever. And just so many spam and, overseas marketers. And I'm like, I don't need to connect with another Indian, Pakistani, Bangladesh, China, Filipino marketer, SEO expert. So a guy was on just last week. I said, okay, I'll open it up, because I set it to where you had to know my email to send me a connection request. And so I changed it back to anyone for about 3 days, and I turned it back off. So in mails you can still get, but I get very few in mails.
Yeah, because the thing is, all of in-mails are typically spam. That's the problem, like 100%. So the essentially the doesn't matter who does it anywhere in the world. when you're doing an email, you know that the likelihood of reply is just way too low. There's like no point doing it essentially, right? So that's why people just stop doing email, because ultimately, if it doesn't work, why would you do it, right? So that's why a lot of folks don't do it. But I mean, I feel the problem in your case is you're in the market, which is the most saturated. So you got to get the most stuff. And I'm in the UK, and and I'm not gonna get as much as you do, because if somebody's sending emails, the number one country for that is US, right? So everybody's sending emails to the US, right? It helps for the best, and that's why saturation levels are super high. Getting through the noise is like super difficult, and arguably personalization. A lot of people talk about personalization and relevance, whatever. That is not enough, arguably, right? So, um, like people have very high expectations when it comes to receiving a piece of message in the US versus say Europe. In Europe, if you send like a half-assed sort of email, I mean, people will still respond essentially. In the US, it's just very, very unlikely, but it still works. The thing is, why folks do send emails to the US. So why wouldn't I send emails, let's say, in Europe? Why would I send always emails to the US? First of all, Americans just get it. People want to make money in the US. People don't mind, spending, I don't know, let's say 1K on something to make a ton more money. Like, they get it that you need to invest in, and so that you make more money. The way that things work in Europe is very different. You're very risk averse. You got to go through like 10 different cycles, a board meeting maybe. Like there was like ridiculous conversations I had sometimes, like where you had to approve $100 budget, like in some sort of board meeting or something. What are we talking about here? Like, and in the US, somebody can pull out, their credit card and pay like 5K after them, it's like, so it's like day and night, and that's because, it's like people don't make money here as much as in the US generally, right? But people, like, the other way to look at it as well is that I always say that typically sales is more of a science in the US. And then when you look at Europe, it's more of an art. And people believe that the only way to make money in Europe is through relationship building and like just networks. Nothing else really works. That's not true. It's just that people don't believe in process and having the right tech for process and many other things. And that's why it's hard. And also Europe is very fragmented, right? So you also need to speak all these languages, Italian, whatever, that's also very tough to learn, right? So, but yeah, so I mean, with the AI agents, then suddenly an agent can speak any language. Whether you wanted to speak Italian or German or French, whatever language you want to speak, right? That's a beautiful thing, right? But the problem is, like, sure, the agent speaks some other language, but at the end of the day, that potential customer may want to jump on a call with you, say he's French, whatever, and then you end up going to speak English. It's not going to go well, trust me. I've done that, actually. Yeah. I've done a test, essentially. I've sent a bunch of emails, great emails, to a lot of French people. And then when it came to actually jumping on a call, I just sent them a tiny warning. Hey, the call is going to be in English. And they all told me to go, my way, kind of, So yeah, I mean, you can definitely, personalize and make it relevant in the native language, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's not going to work out because you're going to jump on a call and they expect you to speak the lingo. So that's an example where, you can't just replace humans, right? But also the problem is, like, it's not like, we all speak, 2, 3, 4, 5 languages, whatever, right? So we barely speak one well. Right? But yeah, so I'm a big believer where the world is headed just generally is where, like, essentially humans are too expensive. That is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to solve that, if you are blending in one way or the other with the AI agents, essentially, in some sort of a same environment. So that's what we're trying to do, really. That's the only way how I can imagine of reducing the cost and also increasing the necessary pipeline numbers the companies need to get to. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, then your burn is like way too high. And this is particularly important in sort of, in non-high ticket sales environments, essentially. In high ticket sales environments, you could justify, cost and paying enterprise sales, whatever, $500,000 in OT or whatever. But in like, even like 20K ACV or or anything below that, it becomes tricky.
Right.
And that's because there's so many software companies, etc. Essentially, the demand for great labor is very high, and not that many people in sales are great just generally. I typically say, I've hired like, hundreds of salespeople in my life, and also fired like hundreds of them. But typically, for every 10 salespeople that you hire, only one person, roughly one, is like natural, like really good. Like, I don't have to teach anything. He just knows his stuff, or she. And then 2 to 3 people can be trained up to be somewhat good as natural, right? They have really the potential. They just need coaching and training and everything. That's great. That's 40%. The rest of the 60% is what I call dead wood. And that's where AI agents are fantastic, right? So, see, the thing is, like, the way that, I used to be a former VP sales. In my last gig, I used to have 50 sales reps. So we would sit down with a CFO in January. We're like, yo, let's plan the year. All right, this is the target. These are our conversion rates. How many reps do we need? And then you realize you need to hire 10 more reps and 20 more reps, etc. And it's not that simple. Hey, let's hire 20 more reps. Where are you going to get 20 really good reps, the 40%? It's not going to happen. So essentially all the heads of sales are sort of, when you're in sales-led work, you're kind of forced to hire these reps to try and attain that target. But a lot of, heads of sales know that that's not how it works. It's not like suddenly you're going to hire these 10, 20 people, and yes, we're going to hit our numbers. It just doesn't work that way. So this is where you have the problem with the 60%. And then you start to think, okay, I really wish I could increase the output of the 40% and let go of the 60%. And I think that's where AI can really help. So that means what I'm trying to say is that people that are good at their job, the 40%, they will always have a job. But the 60%, they should arguably shouldn't be in sales generally, right? They should be doing whatever that else is. And the best way maybe to compare this sort of, whole thing that we're going through right now in the last 2 years with OpenAI and stuff like that is think like, how the robotics and factories, how they have evolved over time, right? We had a lot of people back in the days in factories working, assembling cars and all that stuff. You look at the factories today, it's all robotics, right? So it's the same, like, that we were seeing. And what I'm trying to lead to here is like, if you're not really great at sales, maybe you should not be doing sales, by the way. Do something else. But like really think hard about kind of your long-term career, because this whole AI stuff is not gonna just fade away, It's gonna stick around. It's gonna get worse, meaning AI is gonna try and figure out what else can it sort of, automate and make it replace. There's even the AI in agents literally for podcasts. That's what I'm thinking about right now. Like there's literally 2 random AI agents talking to each other. And it's actually interesting to listen to that. That's the weird thing. But it's 2 literally AI agents talking to each other. So imagine the crazy stuff that's going to happen in a few years' time, right? So think about, essentially areas where it's just hard to replace you, right? So as I said, great salespeople will still have jobs. If you're not great at sales, either figure out how to get to the top 40%, right? Or just leave and do something else. But yeah, there's definitely huge shifts. So, and when you look at a typical startup today in the Silicon Valley versus sort of 5 years ago, the teams are a lot smaller, a lot.
Yeah.
Versus what they used to be back then. So it's already evident in headcount numbers. It's evident that per employee revenue keeps going up as well. Essentially, there are some charts where it says that to generate X amount of revenue, you need fewer and fewer and fewer employees.
Right.
As we're progressing, right? So AI will just accelerate that a bit more.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, it's quite an interesting time to be alive, first of all right? But the second one is like, at the same time, it's kind of scary, right? Because you're like, damn, my job may not be, may not have a job,
Yeah. So you built Salesforge, right? Blending humans and AI agents to build more sales pipeline. So who uses this? Does a solopreneur use this? Do they need to be a mid-sized company? Does this replace a CRM, or does it just supercharge an existing CRM, or is it pre-CRM and then get the lead and then pull them into my CRM? So, who's
So
this for?
so this thing is for so literally from day sort of zero founder all the way to a Fortune 500 company. So typically you're a B2B company and all of them need to do sales. A lot of them do outbound. And there's a bunch of different problems in outbound, including the fact you have way too many salespeople, right? So, but this typically sits on the top of a CRM. So CRM is fantastic as a place where you just store your data, right? And then when it comes to kind of executing actually sales, typically you use a solution that's designed for that. And there's quite a few solutions in the market that are just designed and built just to maximize sales efficiencies. We're one of those. So we do that really well on the email front. We have multiple products, what we call multiple forges, to help you to solve the problems of email. So the main one is actually email durability, making sure that emails actually land in the primary. This is the first problem to be solved before you think about relevancy and AI agents and all that stuff. So that is like super important. But we also have a lot of customers that don't even use a CRM because they know that CRM is where you just store some data. And to get a CRM like HubSpot or whatever, Pipedrive, whatever these CRMs, it costs like $100, right? And a typical customer pays us less than $100. So, and we have a lightweight CRM. You can store your data in there if you want to. So yeah, some of our customers don't even have a CRM. And then you have these Fortune 500 companies. They have a Salesforce typically set up. And then, yeah, we have a bi-directional sync. We're just syncing the records, right? So,
You know what I've seen over the years? I mean, I've been selling marketing automation tools since 2007. And still to this day, most people, they can't even envision a non-chaotic life. I don't know how else to put it, right? They're just accustomed to sticky notes, working out of their email, whiteboards, Google spreadsheets, yellow, red, green, orange, whatever, memory, scrap paper on their desk, so I take them through a kind of a visioning process, right? I'm like, describe for me, your ideal process. And a lot of them can't even imagine it. It's like grabbing, somebody from the slums of India, and saying, you could have 10 acres and a 12,000 square foot home and a Olympic-sized swimming pool and an indoor basketball court and a chef, bring you meals in bed. They can't imagine it. They've never seen it, so they can't imagine it, right? And that's literally how I see entrepreneurs, especially, and even small businesses. I'm talking with a guy right now that I've known for years, and we're catching up. We're in this kind of a mastermind group. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? We're talking about technology. And he had hired me years ago to help with their HubSpot. And his company, he's still with the same company, but he's a subsidiary of a bigger company. And a new boss came in. The new bosses always want to, pee on the tree, right? Leave their mark. And they always swap technology. We're going to redo the brand. We're going to redo the website. We're going to get a new CRM. Okay, great. And so they brought it in, doesn't work as well as they should. And I'm like, just make your guys use the tool. And he's like, I wish I could. This guy's 60 years old. He's old school, man. It's not like he's some brand new pushover. Maybe conversely, he's just tired. I've been doing this a long time, man. But he's like, I can't get my guys to enter their data. So like from very small, not envisioning and very large, like it's too hard to manage. It's like, it seems like we're just always meant to have chaos in the sales world. Is that fair to say? Is it accurate? Does AI help solve some of this chaos, because it's still just another tool that people could still use incorrectly. They can't give it the prompts.
Exactly.
And so it's still junk. You
Yeah,
know?
junk in, junk out, right? So yeah, I see where you're coming from. There's definitely the segment of businesses where they would not even they would have never used ChatGPT even, right? So like it's like sure there's like some gimmick for them, um, but I think that's what I call the segment where like they don't need any software. They're used to the ways of doing, and they don't try to fix what's not broken, right? So at the end of the day,
Well, hey, I think almost everything's broken. I mean, the people, I was in corporate America for a long time. I consult inside of corporate America. Chaos, man. Chaos is the norm. Now, that may be like survivor bias in the negative. I mean, people don't call me. They don't bring me in when things are hunky-dory, So it's like a fireman saying, every house I go to is burned down to the ground. So, well, that's why they're calling you. But, I mean, most sales managers have never had sales manager training.
Yep, I agree.
And most salespeople really haven't had sales training. They've had product training. They've had operations tell them how they want them to use the CRM. Marketing comes in and tells them how glorious the new product is, but not why their ICP would buy it. So it's just kind of scratch and scrape and dig and claw and invest on your own maybe, and you start to figure it out. Because even when they bring me in, I had a big contract with Dell forever ago. Made a lot of money, looks good on the resume, but I didn't move the needle. When the employee is forced to be there, they're not really engaged. So how much impact are you really making?
Well, this is why, in my line of business. So yes, there's a bunch of companies like these, and it's very hard to, like you said, move the needle, right? And this is why for example, when I'm, scaling the company, I'm trying to do business with companies that are, forward thinking. Essentially, they understand the whole thing about AI, where they're using some tools internally, and yes, they're hungry to, change, because they know that, if they won't change, then the competition definitely will, right? And you're always kind of in this constant sort of cycle of trying to innovate essentially, and because that the technology is just moving so fast, and yeah, there are literally companies that literally change on a yearly basis just to get better and better and trying to outcompete, right? And I think that's what's really that's what I really love about American culture. This is typically quite evident in the US. Europeans are very slow, they're like whatever, like they wouldn't implement a lot of tech or whatever processes. As I said, if nothing's broken, then don't fix it, right? So and people are
Hey,
fine.
there was a conference in Slovenia. They flew me out years ago. I think it was like 2017.
What's it called?
So they kind of wanted sales, but maybe you're being too hard on the Europeans, man.
You think? I mean, I lived here for too long, but so I mean, I've been to the US so many times, and I mean, there are some people that are definitely good, right? So, but we're talking about on average, looking at the quality of labor and you've got in this part of the world, and versus the US. I'm not saying everybody's bad or anything. I think people, also folks in the US, just for example, love to hit quota. There's a lot more people that on that front. They just know, they understand the grind, and they understand that people have goals in life and they have debt to pay and whatever. A lot of Europeans don't have any debts to pay. you get free healthcare insurance and all that. Like you're not under pressure whatsoever. And so see, the thing is, like, when you're not under pressure and like, you're not gonna do the grind essentially in sales that you need to do. And a lot of folks in the US, they have a family, they have a house, they have debts to pay, right? And they will work and work and work, and they will earn and earn and earn. You don't have that sort of thing in Europe. People are not in debt, in this part of the world. And then when a random person is looking for a job, they definitely want to stay away from sales. So there's a lot of people that are just afraid of sales. Sales is just an American thing, actually. A lot of Europeans don't believe that sales is something that Europeans should be even doing.
That's interesting, and maybe it was just it was the Middle Eastern and Asian experience. I was stationed in Korea, stationed in the Middle East, and they haggle like crazy.
Yes.
And I know that's a bit of a cultural thing, but I guess I was in London, and they didn't haggle much. So maybe it's a Middle Eastern Asian thing. But man, you got me sold on Europe. I'm gonna move to Europe. I'm tired of this pressure.
Well, definitely, I do see actually a lot of folks from the US do move from the US to Europe for different reasons. And I don't think it used to be as big of a thing, say like 10 years ago. But I definitely do see some smart people weirdly moving to Europe, and that's predominantly that's because they just don't like the way that things are done in the US, or they don't like the constant daily pressure that you have in the US. And you go to Europe, you don't feel like you're having that sort of pressure. And as I said, because there's you don't have to pay to go to doctors and all that stuff, right? So you feel that just generally there's less pressure, but also at the same time at the same time there are less opportunities generally in Europe than in the US. Doesn't matter, Korea and everything else. But because most of the jobs these days, not most jobs, many jobs these days are essentially jobs where you just need a laptop and Wi-Fi and that's it, right? A lot of people do move to here because of that. And so yeah, that's something that I also see. And even salespeople as well. So they'll move to whatever, Colombia or whatever, somewhere else essentially, wherever the prices are lower. Dude,
I know more than a few people that have done that. Yeah. I mean, it's tempting for me. I just need a good jiu-jitsu school. So like who's using this software? Would a sales VP or an owner set it up and let it run and then kick the lead over to the salesperson once they bubble up? Or does like the BDR team run this thing and then kick it over to sales? Do you hand it to an AE and they
so tiny companies, these will be like founders. And then the other tiny companies, these are like agencies, essentially consultants, agencies that essentially what they provide for a bunch of these, say, startups is more pipeline, right? So they would typically use a lot of them will use our software. So we have those, and then in bigger companies, yes, you have sales teams, etc. And then, so let's say I have this one case, a big company, VP sales, but he only has 2 AEs. It has 0 SDRs, 0. So he's like, SDRs are a bit too expensive for us. We don't have the budget for it. But he does have a budget for an AI SDR. So he's like, Frank, listen, I'm just going to give like 1 AI SDR to each of my account execs. And at least it kind of helps them to build pipeline on the side while the account exec also builds pipeline, right? That's one example. And then, yeah, I mean, there's these other sort of, examples where I'm an SDR manager and I have, 10 SDRs. I fired a couple and I can't really find, like really great SDRs. So meanwhile, let me just like for 3 months or like 6 months, let me run these AI SDRs to help me attain the pipeline target, right, that I have as a manager. So there's a bunch of different cases, and I think like I'm definitely seeing more and more of that essentially where, I mean, the SDR team essentially runs on our software, but in tandem they're just spinning up these agents. I'll give you an example why, how would that work. So let's say you're like, again, in a big company, you have key accounts, For key accounts, you want to give them a lot of love, right? You can justify, hiring an SDR, doing multi-threading, whatever else you want to do, call calling, all that stuff. But then you have this like, the small fish that nobody will want to go after. Also, from a unit economics, it doesn't make sense to apply, the humans on these accounts. And there's a lot of them, right? In a lot of companies, that's the case. So, and then the companies start to think, how can I programmatically reaching out to these, additional accounts? But I have to keep, the CAC down, right? So the cost of acquisition down. Because the tickets will be much lower from these accounts. But because there's so many of them, right, there's definitely an opportunity there. And so this is where companies start to think about, let me do automation and let me do whatever, and we're at the stage where companies just think about, let me just get an AI agent and process this. Right? That's how they think about this. So, and I think we're going to see more of that. It's just, I think it's inevitable, like ultimately. And AI agents, whatever you think and whatever everybody else thinks, the whole tech, like these LLMs or whatever, they only exist for about a couple of years. So it's still the whole tech is, in its sort of infancy still. Wait for another couple of years. And, I'm talking about, where sales teams will be computing essentially deep fakes, where essentially you can, upload your voice file, your face and everything. And then I'll say, hey, AI agent, can you please create this great, video, 30 seconds long. And that would, be super relevant, and personalized to this particular individual. And you'll be able to do that at scale, thousands of deepfakes in a minute. That's where we're getting to. So you're going to receive a video from West, and you will not know whether it's a real West or not,
Yeah, I mean, they will. I think there'll be some regulations coming out. But like, I'm on your website, and, you've got a screenshot. Hey, validation has successfully completed. Select which categories of contracts you want to send emails to. Select the contacts count 237,222. A handful of years ago, a small business would not have 237,000 contacts, and because no mainstream ESP is going to allow you to send. They don't let you send cold email, right? You can't send to a purchase list. So, but now this solopreneur, this super small business, they probably should send 2,000 emails. They're like, oh, what the hell? The more the merrier. Let's 100x this, right? And they send it 237. So, I mean, eventually, if everybody's sending out 237,000 emails when they should send out 2,000, I mean, doesn't the system just get overwhelmed? And the guy works himself out of business because maybe he's really good, but now he can't fulfill all those orders. And, the only thing worse than being invisible is paying money to the world to let the world know that you can't back up, you can't put your money where your mouth is, right? And you can't fulfill. Now the world knows, okay, don't go back to that guy because he's undependable. So, like, where's the balance in all this?
That's a good question. I don't think I can even, answer where's the balance here. That's the chaos, I guess, that we're all in, right? So yes, you have you have what they call the senders and then the receivers, right? So you're trying to send a bunch of emails, doesn't matter how many emails, etc. And then on the receiver's end, a lot of people receive a lot of emails. Now, the trend is massively accelerating in terms of how many emails are in circulation. It just keeps on growing year over year because there's more automation tools, more companies, more everything, essentially, right? More like automation is the biggest one, actually. So more emails being sent, and essentially buyers are overwhelmed by the number of emails that you kind of go into the inbox. So what does Google do? Microsoft have done, especially over the last couple of years, they have started to do a lot more policing, a lot more, and I think they're going to continue doing that. There's no reason why wouldn't they? And that's in the name of better user experience, right? Not receiving unsolicited emails, etc. But the way that many markets, US, whatever, have always worked, cold email was always a thing. Business A wants to reach out to business B was always a thing. And in the US, you started to kind of scale these activities, popularized by folks like Aaron Ross, for example, and also then some softwares in the space like Outreach and SalesLoft, where they started to do sequencing, right, all automated, stuff. And now everybody's doing it, right, and now everybody's receiving a lot of these templates, and now it's a lot of AI stuff, etc. I think where we headed as a business journey, sorry, as a society, sort of. So now you have these AI agents, now they have these AIs, but the end game, I think, is that an AI agent on the seller side will talk to another AI agent on the buyer side. They will have a quick, chat back and forth, and then the buyer, if this is a qualified opportunity to chat about a pain that the business actually has, then the buyer will get the pain. I think that's where we headed to, right? So, because it ultimately saves times on both ends, right? So for the sellers and the buyers, if this actually does happen, and I think that's where we're moving toward, because we have this sort of inefficiency in communication. I mean, the buyers don't have time to review the emails, and so the sellers that are then forced to send more emails, right? Because the conversion rate isn't there, right? Like things like that, and you're trying to think like, how do you solve this? Like, how do you automate the communication between business A and B that it benefits both parties, right?
Well, I keep saying, back in the day, it was you would hire a VA, so your VA would send an email, my VA would delete it. Now you hire the AI, and and then my AI deletes it. So, but if they want to strike while the iron's hot, I mean, what do they do? Are you kind of a soup to nuts? Can you help them curate the list, create the emails, warm up the inboxes, create the emails, integrate it? I mean, is it like a full service? Do you have a team that'll do that, or is it just the software and they have to figure it out themselves? Like, how does that work?
It's a good question. So if a customer says, "Hey, Frank, I want the agent to do everything," so then what happens is that, I mean, I'm gonna explain how it actually works. So the first and foremost, what happens with the software, you set your ICP, so your ideal customer profile that you want to reach out to, right? So, and the customer has two choices kind of after that. First, you can load your list because you have a lot of data in the CRM. Well, the second option is you're telling the agent the ICP, and then the agent goes and sources the best possible data from multiple databases around the world. So that's like a poll and a bunch of other ones, essentially. But essentially trying to figure out which of the databases is the closest match to the ICP that the customer has set. Now, what happens next is what a typical SDR would do. We'll do a bit of research on LinkedIn and the website, whatever, right? And based on that, we'll craft a relevant email, right, manually. But that's what the AI agent does, essentially. So the AI agent looks at what do you sell. So that's essentially, think of this as a value prop. We call that product or a service, essentially. You're offering something. And then we match that data with what we call potential buyers data. So that's the LinkedIn URL, literally on the profile. And we'll literally take all the information possible, like the headline, what's in the about section. Very juicy information, by the way. There's a lot of stuff, good stuff in the about section. Then the title, sometimes the person says what they actually do in the company. So all that information. Mine is the junk, like, university, like nobody cares about it. So we don't look at that stuff, but essentially trying to figure out, okay, kind of, have the right context to compute, right? So this is what we're selling. This is what we know about the individual and the company. And then you compute on top of that. And this is how you then get to great messaging. And then you can apply tonality and frameworks, etc., right? So if you want to optimize that way. Definitely can be done. And then so you execute, send out great emails, whatever. And then imagine somebody replies back, and then the agent actually sends an email back to the prospect within a few minutes. And the reason why this is important, instead of sending an email after 8 hours or next day, is because time kills deals. Like if you don't respond quickly enough, it's one of the reasons why the deal has never happened in the first place, because it's just how it is, right? So you need to be, you get a reply in your inbox. You should be replying literally, typically within a couple of hours. Typically after 2 hours, the probability of conversion rate starts dropping from kind of macro level data. So kind of, replying fast is super important. And then what the agent does fully autonomously, it actually is able to book a meeting. So it's end to end, first of all, the software itself. But even though it's end-to-end and even though it's an AI agent, because 99% of companies have never used an AI agent in their lives. We then say, okay, here's an account manager, free of charge. We'll create a mutual Slack channel, typically if a person has a Slack channel, and we will kind of guide you and we'll kind of set up. We have this onboarding call, a checklist, and that's simply because people have not used the AI agent. They have to get used to it. Then people get used to it typically within a few weeks, and then they're kind of off. They're on their own kind of there. As in, that they can do everything themselves, right? So, I say, again, back in the days, so tech used to support humans, and what we're gonna see as we progress more and more into the future, that humans will support the tech essentially, right? So, that's also something that I'm seeing right now a lot more, because people building these cool, like platform agents, these cool, super robust systems, and then a human just needs to monitor the whole system.
Yeah.
And the system does all the legwork, literally from researching to crafting to whatever else it does, right? And updates the CRM and blah, blah, blah. So you see a lot more of that because there's a lot of other cool tech out there that, you can use, whether you assemble yourself or something else. So I'll give you an example of what we're doing internally. So even though I have these bunch of cool AI agents, these AI agents are only optimized for outbound stuff. And of course, I have a ton of leads that are coming in inbound as well. And I also want to optimize there and do a bunch of cool things. And we haven't yet optimized agent framing just for inbound stuff. So I'm just using this, automation software called N8N, or there's also another one called made.com, where you can essentially build like anything kind of in terms of workflows, hook up an AI agent, etc. And this is essentially, think of it this way, like, so for example, in my team, I have this girl. She didn't get why I wouldn't just get HubSpot. Why do we need this N8N? Because HubSpot is an off-the-shelf solution, right? And it does these XYZ things. But HubSpot is, for example, not really great when it comes to, say, email deliverability. It's not really great to build proper workflows and like maximize, say, the conversion probability. And this is why you need to build these different flows, right? So that's the evolution of like, okay, a lot of off-the-shelf solutions, but like really automation.
Explain that though. I mean, I like HubSpot, and I've used a crap ton of tools.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, if you're an expert, if you really know what you're doing, yes, some kind of custom thing is better. But I mean, it's not even the 80-20 rule. I think it's like the 99-1 rule. I mean, most people, again, like I was saying, they're chaotic. Just giving them a system.
Yes, I know. But
it's like, holy crap, it saves their life. And so, and that's where,
like, the evolution of that is like, okay, they're chaotic, give them a system. So that's HubSpot, right? Essentially, or something like that. But then the level after that. So if HubSpot is sort of too boring for you, or it doesn't do the job, like you're in that sort of stage. The next stage is this sort of, these platforms sort of N8N, right? That's where the whole is moving. And then the kind of the pinnacle of all of that is like an agent, at the end of it, right? So, it depends on naturally the appetite and the sophistication level of the organization on how, where they are. But so,
when you customize something, it's got to be fed, got to be maintained, it's got to be babysat.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like the whole reason I switched to the iPhone in 2007. I mean, I had become a geek, right? I was resetting, cleaning up MS config files and stuff and busting out tearing apart my smartphones. And I'm like, I don't get paid to do this. I want to turn the button on and I want it to work, and it's like, why carry a Glock? I want to pull the trigger. I want it to go bang. Now I've also got some 1911, some 2011s. Yeah, I got some fun stuff, but I digress. Most people pull the trigger, go bang. Get to my computer, type in a name. There's the name. What do I do to that? Bing. Hey, make call number 2. Say this. Oh, wow. I mean, most people aren't even there. So that's why it may sound like I'm asking rudimentary questions, right? But it's like, the people that understand this, they're already jumping to your website, signing up for a demo. but the bulk of people are still haven't even tried it, haven't done AI. They don't know. They may not even have a CRM, or they got a rudimentary CRM. I'm in threads like on Reddit, right? I'm in the CRM subreddit. Every single day, people ask a question: what CRM should I buy? I mean, it's like saying, hey, which girl should I marry? I don't know, dude. Who are you? What? That's a weird question. Hey, what car should I buy? I don't know. Do you have kids? Do you marry? Do you live in the snow? Like, but they'll ask something that rudimentary, and then people jump on. That's what's even worse. Oh, you should buy HubSpot. Oh, you should buy Pipedrive. Oh, you should buy Go High Level. I mean, because 9 out of 10 times they're an affiliate, and 1 out of 10, it may be the tool they have and they just like it. It's like, don't make that recommendation. You have no business making that any recommendation until you ask 27 more questions. It's like, ugh.
Somebody should build something like, with a ChatGPT interface, and you can ask, what CRM I should get, and then ChatGPT will ask you, okay, what are your requirements,
Well, I have that, but without the AI. Maybe I should add the AI, but crmquiz.com. Hey, everybody, go check that out. It asks a bunch of multiple choice questions and gives a score and a recommendation between about 7 tools now. I mean, it's not exhaustive in the entire universe. Every day there's a new SaaS platform coming out. You can't keep track
of like CRMs. I think the CRM that I kind of like, which is kind of different, I think, as a concept to other CRMs. There's a CRM called breakcold.com. They're very tiny. There's literally like less than 10 guys running it, and Bootstrap, etc. But their belief is that any CRM should have the social elements as well. So, for example, within the CRM, you can talk to a person on LinkedIn within the CRM. Things like that, or X, or things like that. And actually, no CRM typically does that. You can't just suddenly paying somebody from your CRM to a prospect. But if your ICP is on LinkedIn, that it is an option. But yeah, with CRMs, the biggest problem is like you need to have a lot of integrations. Like, you want to make sure that your CRM integrates with anything, and out there that you're procuring, because it's not just a CRM, right? You got to get another 10 tools on top of the CRM, right? And you want to make sure it integrates. And sadly, or luckily, depends how you look at it. Yeah, most typically it's like Salesforce, HubSpot that you get, you should be getting like in a way. But yeah, there's Go High Level and other ones as well, like Close.com as well, and there's so many of them. Yeah, there's so much CRM out there. But the thing is, I've looked at the CRM market myself, and you can still start a CRM and build $1 billion company, apparently. Just find your niche that you would, go after.
Yeah. So why did you start this? Because there are are you like a direct competitor with like an Instantly or an Apollo? I mean, are you doing the same stuff?
All of them are competitive. Exactly. So the reason why I started this company, so I've been in sales for over a decade, and then I felt like, I had enough selling software for...
Listen, that's nothing. You're a baby, okay? Look at this gray hair, man.
No, I know. I've
earned these stripes.
In Europe, I'm not a baby. In the US, I am a baby. Yes, I totally agree. But the way to think about this is that, so yeah, I've been in sales for over a decade, and I had in my last gig, a sales team of about 50 people. And then I found myself, really...
And you were young. Why would you leave that?
Why would I leave?
I mean, most people would love to be a manager, have a team of 50, and they're the boss.
Nah, I mean, back then it was kind of, scale, growth at all costs, essentially, right? That's why I had such a big headcount. But it wasn't sustainable. Everybody knew about it, by the way. But VCs were breathing down your neck saying you have to scale. And we did. And the product was... The product was okay, but it was not like wow, But the reason why company grew is because of the sales team, essentially. That was really the main, the beast in the company. The sales team would just make it happen, and majority of the company was a sales team, as well. That's also interesting. So, and the reason why I built this is because I want to help companies figure out a way how they build that sales pipeline that needs to be built with the least headcount possible. Because me as a head of sales back then, I had like so many tools to build a pipeline, and they have to stitch them together. And then my sales ops manager had to do X, Y, Z things, integrations, flows, whatever, And yes, there are tools like Apollo, etc., but they're not actually that great. They're only great for data. Yes, there's the Instantly guys, etc., and there's a bunch of other software as well. But when I look at like macro level, like I can't even see a player in the market that's like Google essentially. Like it's just so good. I never had a feeling that was just so good. We used Outreach, for example, back then was a VP sales, and I asked the head of product at Outreach to improve the product, to improve my efficiencies. But guess what? At Outreach, they charge per seat. And if the efficiencies go through the roof, that means companies will buy fewer seats. As simple as that. One of the reasons why Salesforce exists is because of Outreach. Because Outreach did not want to innovate. They don't have to, So, I guess what? Now they get disrupted, and now Outreach is actually in trouble. They had major layoffs and many other things.
Mm.
So I knew the world is shifting, and I knew that teams had to become leaner and meaner, and the current just tech stack that's out in the space just doesn't cater for that. Really, it's not just about sending emails. It's also about what you do on LinkedIn. It's also about the cold calling aspect. So we're gonna do these things as well. So I never felt like this space. So it's a very fragmented, a lot of plays, but you never felt like there's like the kick-ass software. It's like really good. It's like what I call the number one pipeline building software on the planet. Nobody comes to mind. Like if you just call them number one, nobody comes to mind. And so yeah, partially is me and having a huge sales team, and I want to do something about it. But also looking at the space and how fragmented it is, and people just build a bunch of point solutions. I just don't see that being the future. Why don't you build something like what I call like rippling, right? So this company called Rippling in the US, and essentially you build these, different products for the same user and the same buyer that solves multiple pains within the space, finance and HR, right? So, but in this case, like the biggest problem in sales is actually pipeline building. Generating demand for the business is the biggest problem that any company typically has with a sales team. Closing is much easier, as a problem to solve. And to build pipeline effectively with all the durability problems and a bunch of other things, you have to build a ton, literally a ton, to solve that problem. And so nobody, built it like really well, where you could, as I said, where you could say, wow, this is such a great software. This is like Apple, right? I would never go and compete against Apple, right? For example. But for this like software category, boy, like nobody's really owning it. Like, yeah, they're saying they're doing something, but then, I'm very sophisticated, like, and I think about, is this like really good? Like, nah, it's not that good. And so nobody's really doing a really good job. So I'm attempting, to do a really good job. So I'm on the journey building these softwares and everything, and I can build more softwares and to really solve, the pipeline problem. I'm really kind of digging it, and it's not just about building more software and solving different problems, but I'm also looking at it from a different standpoint. So not the AI agent standpoint, that's like one angle, right? And there's a lot of hype in that space. But what I also see is like, so I used to work in ad tech a lot. I used to work with Google and a bunch of other companies. But one of the big things that happened in the world of ad tech and marketing is using a lot of machine learning models to improve the efficiencies. You try to predict and, outcomes essentially, right? To ultimately, make more revenue, etc. But we're not doing any of that in the world of sales. We're not using machine learning model to try and, for example, to predict when an email should be sent out, right? Or to predict that for this industry and this ICP, we should be using agents or humans. We're doing none of that. And that is definitely a big thing in the world of MarTech, leveraging machine learning models and GenAI models and custom data and blah, 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 all that stuff. And I was also like thinking, damn, everything is like rules-based in the world of sales. Like a human makes a decision, in sales. And so we're talking about kind of sophisticated kind of thinking here. So if humans making decisions, and we all know humans make mistakes, right? So, and you pay dearly for these mistakes as a business, right? So how can you avoid mistakes? Well, if there would be a large, data set, then we could apply machine learning models. We could predict, outcomes, and we could try and avoid errors by the humans. So what I'm trying to say is what also is going to happen over time is that we will be taking away actually decisions from salespeople and passing it on to some, big data lake essentially. And that's something that you've seen also with Google and the Google Ads account, where, back in the days, you used to do like manual bidding in Google. And a lot of the spend and campaigns these days within Google are on automated bidding. Guess what that means? Behind the scenes, Google has a vast amount of data and runs the automated bidding. On top of that, use a bunch of machine learning models, right, to set the bids and predict what bids need to be set, right, versus kind of the human approach, right? So, yeah, the thing is, like, humans are humans, right? And there is the human error that just a company has to pay for. So we're also going to see then the shift from kind of rule-based execution ultimately to a more predictive execution as we're going to progress into the future. As I mentioned, example, predicting the email, predicting the time of the day when we should be calling a prospect, like things like that, to increase the probability of achieving a better outcome, right? Rather than relying on humans crunching Excel sheets of past data, right? So, and then trying to kind of manually optimize. So, but yeah, and then we have the people that you kind of mentioned, right? Where they don't use any tech, nothing, right? And they're still in their spreadsheets. You'll still have that, but I think it's just it's just a generational sort of thing where there'll be fewer and fewer sort of those people, and there will be a lot more sort of, let's call it, savvy/sophisticated people that will be coming into space.
How long did it take you from getting the idea to getting your first paying customer?
So the funny thing is that we took it a different route. So we first asked the customers to pay before shipping a single line of code. That's the best way to figure out product market fit. If somebody is paying you for a subscription for a product, that does not exist actually. But there's no code base, nothing. Literally, it's just what you said to a prospect. Even not even a deck, by the way. It was literally a landing page that I built and explain what it will do. And would you be willing to pay for this now? It was a very ballsy move. And essentially, we got 4 customers before we started shipping, a single line of code. It was the best validation ever. So how long did it take us to build? I mean, the way that we build, we don't build never a perfect product. So probably took us like the initial build of Salesforce as the core mothership product, about 4 months or so before we went to market, and then we started to iterate, and now it's a very mature product. But yeah, I'm not a believer of kind of building and building and building, trying to perfect, and now it's perfect. Now we can launch. No, launch the product ASAP, put it into the market, get feedback, and then iterate from there
on. Interesting. So 4 months of code development, though, 4 customers. I mean, are they plunking down $10,000, $20,000, $30,000?
No. Each of them paid like $100 a month. So not a lot.
Well, so I mean that doesn't cover your expenses. But
no, definitely not. I mean, back in the day,
but it validated, gave you the confidence to move forward and take the risk.
Yeah, it's not about somebody paying like 10 grand or something. It's about, would somebody even pull out a credit card and just pay for the idea, right? If you're able to make people pull out a credit card before shipping a single line of code, just based on a single landing page, there's something in here, right? So,
and
so
were those existing customers, were they like consulting customers that were happy to expand, or were these like cold, like net new customers that hadn't bought from you before?
So 1 or 2 were from a network, and then 2 were cold. One of them was mega cold. The reason why it was mega cold, I was literally pitching the idea to somebody in the bar. Sorry, coffee shop, not in bar. Coffee shop. I was pitching an idea to some random person.
Whatever, you're British. We know it was a bar.
And then there was a random dude who overheard my pitch.
Damn.
And he said, can I buy this? He literally came up to me and he was just listening it in on my page. I don't know who he was. And he said, can I buy this? And I said, sure. Here's my URL. And he literally went in that moment and bought. I was like, damn, that just gives you so much motivation. That's like, another signal. And I said that also to my co-founder. Yo, somebody just randomly bought the Forge in a coffee shop. What?
Does that put pressure? Does that put pressure on you?
No, that just gave like, fuck, we should build this, So, but it gives you that, like, you need these moments in life, right? Where like this random thing happens to you, and you're like, damn, we should just build this. Because like building something what we have built right now, like it's a big build. It's not like a tiny widget or whatever that we're building that we could do over a weekend. We knew it's gonna take years. So now we're not even 2 years in, and we already have 4 software. So we're shipping a lot. But just kind of give you an idea, kind of timeline wise. Well, January last year, 3 co-founders. Right now, 35 people. Like more than 10x, kind of headcount. Like growth is about stellar, multi-million-dollar ARR, whatever. But it was tough in the beginning, like because but the thing that kind of kept us going. A, we had people that were paying for this. B, there was domain expertise in the space, so that was me, right? I knew that there's something here, right? Because I've been in those shoes. I'm essentially building this for my former self. So I knew there had to be. There are more people like me out there, so, and there are thousands of them. It's not like, a few more, that's struggling, to essentially acquire net new dollars for a business cost effectively. There's a struggle there. And the struggle will accelerate because of the inflation and the salespeople wanting to get paid more and more every year, whatever, all these problems. So yeah, and these moments in life, like that moment in the coffee shop, is like it gives you that boost, and you need that as a startup founder because it's like Musk used to say, it's like building a startup is like eating glass and staring in the abyss. It's literally that, and but at least in my case, because I've been in sales for such a long time, like things not working out was normal for me. People saying no to me, not buying my stuff, etc. So for me it was all right, but I used to be paid really well, and then suddenly, I have 2 kids, and suddenly I telling my missus, hey, honey, I'm gonna start my startup, So there's also kind of family pressure there, that you have on yourself. But she was very supportive, but she was like, really, you really want to do this? Like, and I had, more job offers lined up, very great offers, blah, blah, blah. I was saying, no, guys, I want to try this thing. Like, because see, like, if you've been in sales for a while, again, say a decade, you become comfortable. Sure, I could join a company. I would do a good job, right? I will get my payout and many other things. But I think the best people in sales are always craving to be in the zone where you're not comfortable. You're learning something new, right? So you could definitely join a company or a space or an industry where you're not comfortable, you don't know new stuff, but it motivates you to learn new, and kind of that gives you that, energy as well. But in my case, I was like, damn, I was selling software for so many different CEOs, doing a great job, whatever. How about I sell, my own software, Just asking yourself.
Hell yeah.
I can sell the software for myself. So what do I need? I need 1 or 2, like just a co-founder, right? So to start that. And there is a moment in life, and I think it's typically sort of, past 30, sort of, 30 years old, you're starting to think like, maybe I should be doing something else. And one thing I've done, and sure, how can you get filthy rich? I have thought, well, let me just put all my savings into crypto. So I've done that. So all my savings are in crypto. That's one way to get filthy rich. I call that my pension fund.
I hope you did it a while ago.
It was a while ago. I started actually investing in crypto back in 2017. So I'm the guy that always hodls. I never take out, even if I'm really desperate. I'm going to ask my mom if I need money. But I just literally put it in. Doesn't matter if it goes down or up. I just keep it. And I know this is a long game, right? So you just keep it for 10 years, 20 years, and you'll be, then you'll take it out, right? So that's what you should do, right? By the way, this is not an advice. Uh, but yeah, where was I? So, I mean, there are a few ways how you can get filthy rich in life. One is like invest into some batshit crazy idea like crypto or something similar, right? So, the other way is like build a startup, scale it, sell it, right? IPO, whatever, right? That's another one. I don't know if there's any like lottery ticket, sure, but just keep on being in sales. Like I would never become filthy rich that way, right? So, and then you start to think, what are my options, and you just make a few bets. So I made one bet. I just gonna all my savings go into crypto, and that's bet one. And the bet two is like, hey, let's just build a fucking cool startup, So that's bet two, and spanning out so well, so far so well. And that's taking into consideration this is our actually first ever startup. It's not like I had companies running in the past or anything. I always, was working for somebody. And it was bad. It was a bet, and panned out pretty well. And so I would generally encourage to, at a point in your life to make a bet or two to try and get filthy rich. Why not?
Yeah.
So because
That's
all of
good.
us are motivated by money. So, and the only way to get even, well, many of us, to get even 10x more money, whatever, 100x, like you need to do something else, right? So, and
Well, you don't get rich by dabbling,
that's true.
And so when you're young, it is good. Take more of a focused risk. And I remember in like 2000, 2001, I was well versed in not necessarily commodities, but precious metal, gold and silver especially. And I went 100% on my whole retirement and my wife's. And I remember I was in USAA's USAGX. It was their precious metals fund. And I'd call them, I don't know, a few times a year, banking, whatever. They're like GoDaddy or whatever. Hey, well, what I have, let's review your accounts real quick. And I'm like, I just got to get off the phone. They're like, well, see, like you're like 100%. We really recommend, divesting. I'm like, no, just leave it. Bye. And I think for like a couple of years, or maybe a few years, it's like USAGX was, I think, the number one performing mutual fund. Either USAA, maybe like in the country. I mean, it was, but I literally read about it every day. An extended family member was a well-known investor. He had a daily blog or newsletter that he put out. He gave me a free account, and I gobbled that thing up and studied the markets for a decade. And then I kind of took my eye off the ball, and just with life. I mean, had 7 kids and everything else, and it started to go down. And I stayed in it a little too long, but I made out very well, right? I didn't get out the exact top. And I was buying Bitcoin at like 14K, and it's up 109 now. So, and again, in retirement, so money we can let sit and ride. And, my wife gets very happy when she sees the retirement accounts. It's like, let it go, right? Let it ride. But you got to take a big enough position, because I remember guys saying, oh, look, oh man, I'm up. It's all big. I'm like, how much? Yeah, I put in like $100. Come on, man. Stop talking about that. It's like, stop talking. But anyway, we got to stop talking. It's what, 11 o'clock your time? 11:20?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Man, you're crazy. I'll get up and do a podcast at 5 a.m. I'm no good after like 8 p.m. I gotta be winding down, man. So I'm linking out to your site, so salesforge.ai/agent/Frank, but don't try to memorize that, folks. Just scroll down, click the link. It's right in there. I'm linking to you as well on your LinkedIn. You've got a free trial, right? I see here on your website. So people can kick it around, right? See how they like it. And I mean, the pricing's super affordable. You got monthly, you've got annual. people they go month to month, right?
Yeah, if they want to, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
most of the companies will do that, like 90% plus. So yeah.
Yeah. So looks cool.
Thank you.
Well, man, thanks for staying up.
Thanks. Yeah.
V. Frank Saunders, bringing home the bacon, man, all the way from the UK. Thanks for coming on the show, man. It's been great.
Thanks as well. Bye.
Hey, man, have a good night.